Good day, warriors. Titan here. Humble servant to the veteran family member, and veteran supporters everywhere. It is my great honor and pleasure to serve you in any way possible. Now, my goal today is to provide you with helpful tips that could prove useful as you move forward from your active military service back to your civilian lives. We are building an arsenal of resources to clear out that operational space for you and your families to do just that. Titan is your loyal and dedicated advocate, fighting for you just as you have and continue to fight for us. Now, you know that there's a lot going on during that transitional period. Loss of valuable time and money can be a heavy consequence to pay for a misinformed decision. But we all know that together as warriors, we utilize available resources to figure out what's right and make things happen. Today, we're going to briefly give an overview of such one tool. Utilizing VA Form 21526EZ, that's Application for Disability Compensation and Related Compensation Benefits, we will discuss the very basics of a Gulf War claim. Now let's go ahead and pull up the 21526EZ. But first, I discussed earlier that a fully developed claim is an optional initiative that offers veterans and survivors faster decisions from VA on compensation, pension, and survival benefit claims. Now, to remain transparent, you know I always state by disclosing that the content contained in my videos is solely for informational purposes only, guys. The Department of Veterans Affairs is not a cooperative of Titanz Media. And aside from the publicly published standardized VA forms and instructions retrieved from the website, it is not an affiliate in any known form, direct or otherwise. Now, if you have any questions, please contact your local Veteran Service Organization or VSO, your attorney, agent, or individual, or your dedicated and motivated VA representative at 1-800-827-1000. Now, to standardize our learning experience, we're going to try to rehash some of the issues. That way it gets in our minds for the next time we have a training or a little tutorial. Kind of frame things. Now, the claims process, it generally has about 8 steps. Now, there's a lot of stuff that goes on in between there. But for your reference purposes, we're going to review those 8 steps. Now, step 1, that's when the claim is received. Now, the online system, the VONAP system, or Veterans Online Application website, when you upload your claim through the system, it's generally received within 1 hour usually. Another option is you send it U.S. mail. Now, when you do it this way, please allow for the mailing time, plus about a week or so for the VA to get it and actually say that we have actually received it or they have actually received it. Step 2. This is under review phase or step. This is where the claim is actually assigned to a veteran services representative and is being reviewed to determine if any additional evidence is needed. Now, if at that time there are no additional information that's needed, it could move to the preparation for decision phase, which is good. Step 3. This is where gathering information takes place. The Veteran Services Representative will request evidence from required services at this point. These sources include yourself, the veteran, medical professionals, government agencies, and other authorities. Step 4. Here's where review of evidence takes place. The VA receives all needed evidence. This could be good now. Or if evidence is determined that more is needed, that Veteran Services Representative will have to go out for that additional information. Step 5, which is preparation for decision. The decision is recommended at this point. Preparation of required documents detailing the decision happens at this point. Step 6. This is pending decision approval. Recommended decision is reviewed and a final award approval is made at this stage. Step 7. Preparation for notification. This is where veterans' entire claim decision packet is prepared for mailing at this point. And step 8, this is when your package is completed. The VA has sent a decision to you by U.S. mail, which details the decision and any awards associated with your claim. So as we look at VA Form 21526EZ, Mr. Jarhead has submitted an additional claim here. But let's just, for instructional purposes, treat this as an original claim. Looks like he's put his identification information in, his name, social, date of birth. He has his service component here. He's a Marine. Current mailing address with no forward mailing address or effective date because he's maintained the same address. Now he has his phone number here. In addition, he has a couple of email addresses. It is good that we have good points of contact for this hard charger here. Section 11, he lists his disabilities. He's listed irritable bowel syndrome, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, and bilateral hearing loss and tinnitus. We'll come back to these here in a little bit. Now, as we scroll down, Section 12, here where he lists his VA medical center or other DOD military treatment facilities where he received treatment. He gives VAMC some city with the appropriate dates that he was actually treated. Now, we talked last time about why it's important to submit appropriate dates, the specific dates, if at all possible. You want to give those dates because you don't want to extend any amounts of time with retrieving records that don't exist. Section 13. We won't touch that too much, but this is where if the veteran has additional claims like dependents, individual unemployability, he wants to add PTSD or SAH or SHA regarding housing situations, auto allowance, aid and attendance. Here it lists the required forms that you need to submit in conjunction with the 21526EZ. As we continue on, we see he has put his service dates here. 01/01/2000 to 02/30/2010. Looks like he is a Gulf War veteran based on these service periods. But we would verify this on his DD-214 or other personnel records. We proceed down, and we see that he has direct deposit information on file. We also talked about the fact that the Department of Treasury requires that all federal benefits are payable through EFT or electronic funds transfer. If you do not have a financial institution or certified payment agent, at that time, you would request direct express debit MasterCard by going to the appropriate website or calling the Department of Treasury at the telephone number 1-800-333-1795. Looks like he has his EFT information in order. Now, block number 25 basically states that the veteran opted to not be considered for the FDC program. Now, this block would be checked if the veteran decides, hey, I have additional information that I want to submit, but I don't have the information with me now. I want to get the claim started, so I'll submit what I have, but I'll check this block to let them know, hey, there's more information coming. At this time, he will have excluded himself for the FTC program, which is the rapid program, but he will be processed with the same caliber of care and duty to assist in the standards program. Looks like Jarhead service member has signed and dated the claim. This is a substantially completed 21526 EZ. Now let's go back up here to his conditions. Being a Gulf War claim here, we have a couple of things we need to determine. First, is this a qualifying veteran under the 38 CFR 3.317, which states that a veteran who served under active duty, active military, naval, or air service in Southwest Asia theater of operations during the Gulf War period. Now, the Gulf War period per 38 USC 101-33 is a period that extends from August the 2nd, 1990 through a date not yet, a date determined by law or presidential proclamation. Essentially, we are still in the Gulf War period until further notice by law or presidential proclamation. Service members' dates of periods of service were 01/01/2000 through 02/30/2010. Jarhead is a qualifying veteran for Gulf War purposes. Now, Southwest Asia theater of operation. Now, this includes the airspace and the airspace above them. These areas like Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, the neutral zone between Iraq and Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Qatar, Oman, the Gulf of Aden and the Gulf of Oman, the Persian Gulf, Arabian Sea, and the Red Sea. As we reviewed the veteran's DD 214, it showed that he indeed had service in Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and the neutral zone between Iraq and Saudi Arabia. For claims purposes, this veteran served in the Southwest Asia theater of operations. Now we have to determine if he has a qualifying chronic disability. Now, under 38 CFR 3.317, chronic means for a period of at least 6 months. But the disability resulted from any of the following or any combination of the following: an undiagnosed illness or a multi-symptom illness defined by a cluster of signs and symptoms. It's diagnosed illness that has both an inconclusive pathophysiology and an inconclusive etiology. There is an overlapping of symptoms and signs, and these features, or some of the features, include fatigue and pain, disability out of proportion to physical findings, and inconsistent demonstration of laboratory abnormalities. Now, he has listed as conditions irritable bowel syndrome, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome. For the purposes of Gulf War chronic disability, he meets the requirement for 38 CFR 3.317. Now, he would need an examination with a medical opinion, basically classifying his symptoms as multi-symptom without conclusive pathology or etiology. But that's where the VA would order his exams. He would get checked out by the VA hospital, and then they would submit those documents back to the VA for claiming in to substantiate his claim. When we're talking about presumptive periods, the last performance of active military, naval, or airspace in Southwest Asia theater of operations during the Gulf War period, and it extends through December 31st, 2016. Now, I would imagine there would possibly be a review of that upon the completion of that date in December 31st, 2013. But as of now, that is the statutory requirement date, end period, for the presumptive. Now, even though we're not going to get too deep into presumptive service connection for infectious diseases under 38 CFR 3.317, we'll briefly go ahead and talk about it. Effective September 29, 2010, there was a presumptive service connection is established for following infectious diseases. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But if the veteran served on active duty, that veteran served in Southwest Asia Theater of Operations during the Gulf War period, in Afghanistan or on or after September 19, 2001, and the disease becomes manifest to a compensatable degree as stated by the statute. So, for instance, West Nile virus has time limit for manifestation of 1 year. So 1 year after the service in that particular Southwest Asia area, if the veteran wants to claim Southwest Nile for presumptive service connection for infectious diseases purposes, he has 1 year from that date of last service in the Southwest Asia area of operations during the Gulf War period. Non-typhoid salmonella has 1 year. Brucellosis has 1 year. And there are some others. So what we discussed transition tools such as VA Form 21526EZ, application for disability compensation and related compensation benefits. We briefly talked about appointment of veteran services organizations, and we'll review that form here soon. And we briefly talked about 2122, appointment of individuals as claimants, which will be the attorney, agent, or individual. Now let's briefly look at those forms before we go. Here is a VA Form 2122. We see here, service member has put his name. The organization that he has opted to represent him is Fictitious Warrior Services. It could have been Legion of Merit or any other organization. Got the information filled out here. Now let's go down here. Important things. Notice that in box 12 and 14, service member has checked and authorized the representative to access his records. And he has also authorized the VSO, to change his address on his behalf. For this to be a substantially completed form, it must be completed substantially, and it must be signed by the veteran and dated by the veteran, signed by the VSO and dated by the VSO, accepting their appointment. Let's go over to VA 2122 Alpha. A similar form, but this form right here is an appointment for individual. Notice that it's completed with name, date, and other relevant information. Here in box 7, it lists some vet advocate Esquire as service members appointed representative. Mr. Advocate just so happens to be an attorney. Let's scroll down to make sure that it's completed substantially. He has checked the appropriate boxes, given the appropriate authorizations. And for instructional purposes only, let's just say that this form was submitted to the VA, but it was not signed by the veteran or his appointed representative. This is not a substantially completed form. What we would do is just have to develop for the form, but until that form has been appropriately signed, filled out, and completed by both the signature of the claimant and his appointed representative, we cannot authorize, or the VA cannot authorize, accesses to the veteran's claim. So we talked about the forms. We went over an overview of fully developed claims program. We did an overview of the claims process, the 8 steps. We talked about briefly what is a qualifying veteran for Gulf War purposes, and what constitutes a Gulf War period and Southwest Asia theater of operations. We talked about what constitutes qualifying chronic disabilities for Gulf War purposes. We briefly discussed presumptive service connection for infectious diseases under 38 CFR 3.317. And finally, we told you where you could get some subsequent information or assistance from places like the VA helpline, the 1-800 number, 800-827-1000, your local Veteran Services Organization, VSO, or your attorney agent or individual. I hope this information has been helpful to you. Until next time, Titan out.